In this video, we're going to help you find the perfect topic for your podcast.
And this is important because you need to determine what you're passionate about so that your people can find you. You can find your tribe.
So we took 40 of the most popular topics for podcasts right now. We put them in this jar, and we're going to go through them one by one.
Let's go.
Number 1. Celebrity interviews. These have become almost synonymous with podcasting right now. You think of the biggest shows, Smartless, Joe Rogan, Unqualified with Anna Faris, and Off Camera with Sam Jones. There's so many of these shows that have a unique perspective where they are interviewing people in different industries that they find interesting.
Next up, we've got sports. This is really cool because you can interview an athlete, you can tell the history of a game, or you can go over a most recent game. So 2 examples of that would be Pardon My Take and Skip and Shannon Undisputed.
All right, wedding and event planning. Let's say you want to be doing photography for weddings, or you want to be doing event planning. Talk to people in the space. Talk about what goes into planning the perfect wedding. This works well because the people that are going to listen to the podcast are probably going to be making a lot of purchases. So great opportunity for you to sell ads. Check out Bridecella podcast and put a ring on it.
Next up, we've got science. So you can use this podcast topic to break down a complex topic so that regular people can understand it, or you can create a podcast around a super niche topic that only a specific group of people would be interested in. So 2 podcasts to check out would be Quirks and Quarks, and then Stuff to Blow Your Mind.
Next, beauty and fashion. So this is another area that you may not typically think would fit well with an audio first medium, but talk about the science of skincare. Talk to people who are working in different beauty and fashion industries. These are just anyone who'd be interested would love to hear your perspective and interviews with people around. So check out Dressed, the History of Fashion, and Breaking Beauty podcast.
I like that play on words. So next we've got Paranormal Phenomenon. So this is where you take an investigative, dare I say journalistic, look at paranormal mysteries, whether you're from like a believer perspective or like a skeptic perspective. So 2 podcasts you can look at would be Paranormal Mysteries and Good Luck Sleeping, to get some good research on that one.
So for all of these, we're talking about some of the examples of podcasts that are already doing this.
Yeah.
But maybe you want to take a specific take on this. So if it's paranormal, talk about how you're a skeptic or how you're a true believer, or focus in on all the ghosts from St. Augustine, Florida. The more you can focus in your topic, the better it'll be.
Yeah.
All right, true crime. This is an entire category of tons of shows, and there's people who listen to many episodes on all the same topic. Share true crime stories in a storytelling format. You could check out Accused, Someone Knows Something, Crime Junkies is one of the most popular podcasts. They're all good.
Next up, we have an advice-based podcast. This is really fun because I think as much as interviews are kind of the lifeblood of podcasts, advice is also the lifeblood of podcasts. 2 lifebloods.
You don't even have to be an expert to give your advice. Sometimes the advice being bad is kind of part of the point.
It's part of the fun, right? So you can create a podcast that could be column style. People could write in and you could give advice to listener-based questions. So you can check out Unsolicited Advice, which we all love, and Dear Sugars if you wanted to check out some podcasts that are advice-based.
There's also a great one called, I think, Advice Gecko. And it's a guy in a gecko suit who's just giving advice and to people's questions. Is hilarious. Check that one out for sure.
That's great.
Before we go any further, let's talk about why we're actually talking about these topics.
Yeah, so sometimes we can feel really directionless, like where do I go? There's all these different options. And we can also feel like the market is saturated. But that's not the case. What we're hoping you'll do is pick one topic, commit to it, and then bring your kaleidoscope of perspectives and experience to make it unique and amazing. And when you do that, you'll bring your unique voice, your unique self to this podcast. And there's nothing else on the planet that's like that. So we are hoping that you will pick a topic, commit to it, and then bring your full self to that podcast.
And we're giving you all these examples to give you examples of other people who have done that. But when you bring your perspective, it's going to be a totally different show and experience for everyone who's listening.
Now, let's go ahead with our next topic.
History podcasts. So back when podcasting was really small, there was a show called Hardcore History with Dan Carlin, and it really started out a ton of podcasts. They're doing deep dives into areas of history. You can talk about specific moments in history or just interesting stories. So a couple examples, Lore, the History Chicks. I also really like Revolutions. It's a podcast that goes into the various revolutions from history in depth over like 12 episodes each season. So check them out.
Next up, we have urban farming. And if there's anything I want to be, it is like Chip and Joanna Gaines and have my own farm, or at least grow my own things. So if you have experience in this area, you can create a podcast teaching people how to grow their own produce. So it could be about the tools to use, the best things, or the easiest things to grow. There's a lot that you can do here. So Backyard Bounty and Urban Farm Academy podcasts are two examples of that.
You are into digital marketing. There's a lot of podcasts about the marketing area, but help small business owners or help people who are interested in breaking into this area learn more about marketing. So Amy Porterfield's Digital Marketing Made Easy and also Online Marketing Made Easy. There's a lot of made easy podcasts in this area. So maybe online marketing made extremely difficult. That would be a good idea for you.
That's a bonus. We didn't even make you pay for that one. All right, so next up would be social media. So if you know your way around social media, you can really harness the power of your knowledge and teach anybody how to use it to their advantage. So it could be social media made easy. It could be social media for business owners or professionals. You can take what you know and teach it to other people. You can even give some tips of the trade, right? So 2 podcasts to check out: Social Pros Podcast and Savvy Social.
And think about how fast social is changing.
Right.
You know, a few years ago, everybody was getting into Snapchat, and now TikTok has become one of the largest apps on the entire web. So it's rapidly moving. You could always be helping your audience stay up to date with the latest trends.
And you don't have to come up with topics necessarily on your own all the time if that's the case.
Yeah, they will naturally pop up for you. Short stories. So there's a lot of podcasts that do scripted fiction. And there's some really beautiful ones that are doing short stories, sometimes to help people fall asleep, like Dreamful, or one that we both talked about earlier actually was LeVar Burton Reads. So if you liked reading Rainbow and you love LeVar Burton, go check out his podcast where you can listen to some beautiful short stories.
Next up, we have behind the scenes. So everybody loves feeling like an insider, right? So you can create a podcast around a behind the scenes experience, whether that's an interesting job that you have or a field or another person's life. You could create a whole behind the scenes BTS experience. So 2 podcasts that do that would be Screenwriters Rant Room, sounds very cool, and then Office Ladies.
And think about how often you have some interesting knowledge about a very niche topic. You know, you were in the room when things were happening, or you just want to tell what it's like working in the back of a restaurant. It may feel totally normal for you, but it's really interesting to people who've never worked in those spaces. So this is a really good one to consider. I have inside knowledge about a particular area. Behind the scenes might be a good topic. Alternative health. This one you might want to be an expert.
Maybe.
There's lots of ideas about health, and you can talk about different ways from mental health to meditation or acupuncture. If there's anything in alternative health that's interesting to you, this is a really popular area for a lot of podcasts. So you can do deep dives into each of these ideas and do some research and learn what works for you.
Next up, we have the outdoors and survival. So if you're a person that likes hunting, the great outdoors, mountains, hiking, that kind of thing, this could be a really cool topic for you. You can teach people about gear, different experiences, survivalist prep. If you're one of those people that are like super prepared for the end of the world, we need to know that information. Please create that podcast. So 2 podcasts around survival in the outdoors would be Casual Preppers Podcast and The First 40 Miles.
Make sure that you subscribe before the apocalypse begins. Nutrition or specific diets. So we're now starting to realize how many people have specific allergies, or maybe there's a diet that's better for you if you have high blood pressure. Well, go in depth and talk about, hey, what should I be eating if I have high blood pressure or if I want to lose weight? Well, you could be doing that in a podcast. Talk to experts, talk to nutritionists, and pass all of that information on to people who are interested.
Next up, we have DIY tutorials. This is really for that person that is just great with their hands. So whether it's woodworking, sewing, crafting, you could be teaching people how to create the things that you create. And so another really cool thing you could do is grow your email list, if you have one, to include free or paid guides to the things that you're creating for your listeners. So 2 examples of podcasts like that: DIY Musician Podcast and Fix It 101.
All right, kind of similar to the short stories are children's stories. So there's lots of podcasts that have specifically started focusing on stories for children, and then realized that there's a lot of people who actually just want to listen to a casual story that may not be as dark or as intense as everything they're seeing on social media and the news. So maybe look at Little Stories for Tiny People or The Alien Adventures of Finn Caspian. If you like telling stories and you have maybe an education background, this might be a podcast topic for you.
All right, next up, we've got animals and pets. Who doesn't love hearing about animals and pets? I know I love it. So you can make a podcast educating owners of unique pets or just kind of documenting how you train your pet. There are a lot of different options here. So 2 podcasts you can check out would be Drinking from the Toilet. Don't know who does that. And then Our Hen House.
And remember, all of these, as focused as you can be, the better. So don't do a dog podcast. Do one about golden doodles. Don't do a podcast just about birds. Talk about the parakeet that you've got living in your home. All right, we just went through a ton of topics, but now's the time for you to sit back and think about how you can bring your unique angle to one of these topics. But if nothing resonated and you didn't find one that felt right, we'll jump over to this video and we're gonna finish off the fishbowl and go through a ton of other exciting podcast topics. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, keep podcasting.